My name is Emily Lane. I am 67 years old. That evening, I stood in my kitchen staring at the lemon cake cooling on the counter. I had made it the same way I always did. Light zest. A thin layer of glaze. Nothing extravagant. It used to be Lydia's favorite, or at least she said so once. I placed it in the carrier, covered it carefully, and told myself that family dinners were supposed to feel like comfort, not obligation. Ethan had called earlier that week, his voice polite but distant. "Mom, Lydia wants to host this one," he said. I told him I'd bring dessert. He hesitated before answering. "Sure, that'll be nice." That pause hung in my mind the whole drive across town. Their house glowed from the street, every light on as if to prove something. Lydia greeted me at the door, wearing a cream dress that matched the marble floors. She smiled just enough to be seen doing it. "You didn't have to bring anything," she said, even as her eyes went straight to the cake box. Dinner began quietly. Lydia spoke of the New York trip, new investors, and an article that might feature them. Her words polished, brief. Ethan nodded, half listening. Scrolling his phone, I asked about the business gently, just to stay part of the conversation, but Lydia's answers were brief and polished. Then, halfway through the meal, she set down her wine glass and leaned back. "Actually," she said, tone airy as smoke, "nobody here even likes you." The room stopped breathing. I looked at her, then at Ethan. He gave a small, nervous laugh, the kind people use when they hope something cruel will pass as a joke. I felt the world shrink to the sound of my own heartbeat. I didn't speak. I cut one last bite of cake, lifted it carefully, and tasted nothing at all. I set the fork beside my plate, folded my napkin, and felt nothing. "Enjoy your evening," I said softly. "You'll need the sweetness later." I carried the empty cake box to my car and drove home under a clean, unbothered sky. 3 weeks later, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was shaking. "Your family is in serious trouble." I rested my hand on the counter, steady as stone. "I know," I said. The call came on a Tuesday evening, just as I was setting a pot of tea on the stove. The light outside had already dimmed, and the sound of rain softened the corners of the room. I almost didn't answer when the phone began to ring. "Mrs. Lane." The voice trembled. Female. Young. "You don't know me." "But I work at the bank. Your name is on the file for the Cooper House loan. I thought you should know before the papers go through." I held the receiver tighter. "Go on. There's a problem," she said quickly. "Your son and his wife are trying to refinance under new management. They've listed you as deceased." It triggered a review. Her breathing came fast. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be saying this, but your signature, it's still active. If we finalize it, you'll be responsible for everything." I could hear the faint hum of the office behind her. Phones ringing. Someone laughing too loudly for the hour. "Thank you for calling," I said. "You're not angry, no." I reached for the kettle handle. "I'm aware of what they've done." Silence stretched between us. "Mrs. Lane," she whispered, "your family's in serious trouble." I poured the water slowly, the steam curling up like breath I no longer needed to hold. "I know," I said, quiet but sure. When the call ended, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, the teacup untouched. Through the window, I could see the reflection of the porch light I had forgotten to turn off. It glowed against the glass. Small but steady. I found a pen, opened the drawer, and took out the folder I had kept since the day I signed their first loan. It was time to begin again. When my husband died, the house went quiet in a way that no amount of sound could fill. Ethan called every few days back then, his voice gentle but strained. "You should stay busy, Mom," he said once. "It helps." I believed him. So when he told me about the restaurant idea, the Cooper House, named after the street where he and Lydia first met, it felt like a way to stay connected to him. They came over one Sunday with papers, sketches, and too much enthusiasm. Lydia spread the plans across my dining table. "Charleston needs something modern, but rooted," she said, eyes bright. "We just need the startup capital. The bank likes our concept, but wants a guarantor." Ethan leaned forward. "It would just be temporary. Once the business stabilizes, we'll refinance. You won't have to worry about a thing." I looked at the figures, the projected costs, the loan amount, $200,000. My savings could cover the down payment, but not the entire dream. Still, Ethan's hand rested over mine, warm, hopeful. "Mom, this will change everything." I hesitated. "You're sure the loan will be manageable?" Lydia smiled quickly. "It's standard. You'll just sign as a co-signer, nothing risky. The bank prefers someone with your credit history." I wanted to believe them. I wanted Ethan to have something that lasted, so I nodded. The day we signed the papers, the banker congratulated them, not me. Lydia hugged me in the lobby, perfume sharp and sweet. "You'll see, Emily, this will make us a real family business." At the grand opening 6 months later, the restaurant shimmered with new light fixtures and promise. I stood near the counter, watching customers walk in. Lydia floated from table to table, her laughter practiced. Ethan worked the kitchen, flushed with pride. When a reporter asked about their inspiration, Lydia said, "It's been our dream from the start." She didn't look at me. That night, Ethan raised a glass. "To the future," he said. I smiled, but something in me tightened. The papers were still in my purse, my name, my signature, and a promise I didn't yet understand the cost of. The Cooper House took off faster than any of us expected. On weekends, the line stretched out to the sidewalk. Tourists snapping photos of the sign, locals greeting Lydia by name. I spent most mornings in the back office sorting invoices, balancing supplier payments, tracking tips that went missing when the register glitched. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept the place running. Lydia would sweep in just before lunch. Perfume first, smile second. "We're killing it," she'd say, flipping through receipts I'd already organized. "The article from Charleston Living comes out next month. They want to feature our story." "Our story," I repeated softly, but she was already halfway to the dining room. A week later, she brought home the magazine. Her face filled the page, framed by string lights and polished wood. The headline read, "Lydia Lane, the woman reviving Charleston's food scene." There was a single mention of Ethan at the end, about his culinary dedication. My name didn't appear at all. When I showed the article to Ethan that evening, he frowned. "Yeah, I saw it. Lydia said they didn't have space for everyone." I folded the page carefully. "I'm not looking for space, just honesty." He rubbed his neck, eyes tired. "Mom, don't make this a thing. It's just an article." It wasn't just an article. It was a story being rewritten one sentence at a time. Customers started referring to Lydia as the owner. Suppliers called her directly now. I'd pick up the phone to confirm an order, and they'd say, "Oh, we already spoke to Mrs. Lane." One afternoon, I heard Lydia laughing near the counter. "Emily handles the paperwork," Lydia said to a new hire, voice light, dismissive. "She likes to keep busy." Her voice was light, dismissive, but it landed heavy. I stayed in the office until closing, checking the numbers twice, then a third time, just to steady my breathing. That night, as I locked up, I paused by the front window. From outside, the glow of the restaurant looked warm, welcoming. Inside, it was smaller, only noise. I learned to occupy that quiet space, unseen, unacknowledged. It started with a balance sheet that wouldn't even out. The supplier totals looked heavier than usual. But the inventory numbers hadn't changed. I stayed late one night after closing, the hum of the refrigerator filling the quiet. Lydia's handwriting was all over the receipts looped. Careless. Confident. The first charge was small, a boutique on King Street, labeled staff attire, then a luxury spa in Savannah, marked client meeting, then a weekend at a hotel, no business account attached. I flipped through the pages again. The pattern was deliberate, like someone confident no one would ever check. The office door creaked. Ethan stepped in, loosening his tie. "Mom, you're still here." "Just finishing the month-end review." I slid a few papers aside. He leaned against the doorframe, smiling faintly. "You worry too much." "Lydia handles most of that now. I can see that," I said evenly. "Tell me, did she meet any suppliers at a spa?" He blinked, confused. "What? Or stay at the Palmetto House Resort for a client meeting?" He frowned. "I'm sure there's an explanation." "There usually is," I said, turning another page. "But numbers don't lie." "Ethan, people do." He shifted, rubbing his jaw. "Mom, don't start something. We're finally stable. Lydia she likes to keep up appearances." "At whose expense?" He didn't answer. The silence between us stretched thin. "Sharp, finally," he said. "Just let it go. Please, I'll talk to her." I gathered the receipts into a neat stack. "I'm sure you will." After he left, I printed every record, one by one. The sound of the machine steadying my pulse. I placed the copies in a folder, labeled it miscellaneous, and locked it inside my desk drawer. The next morning, Lydia breezed in with a new handbag swinging from her arm. "Morning, Emily," she said, voice bright. "I scheduled a photographer for next week's social media content." I looked at the bag, then at her, paid for by the business. She blinked, then smiled. "Everything's for the business, isn't it?" Her laughter lingered as she walked away. When the door closed behind her, I opened the drawer and ran my fingers over the folder's edge. The paper inside felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't anger I felt, then just certainty. I would wait. Time, like numbers, always balanced in the end. I arrived at the Cooper house before dawn. When the air still carried the night's cool weight, the restaurant was silent. Chairs stacked, coffee machines unplugged. I turned on the small lamp in the office and laid the folder on the table. Inside were printed statements, highlighted charges, bank letters, months of quiet proof. When the door opened, I didn't look up. The sound of heels came first. Lydia's voice followed, clipped and alert. "Emily, why are you here this early? Because this conversation needs to happen without an audience." I said. She hesitated, then folded her arms. "If this is about the schedule again, Ethan." "It's not about schedules." Ethan walked in behind her, still half asleep, running a hand through his hair. "Mom, what's going on?" I slid the folder toward them. "Open it." Lydia glanced at Ethan before flipping through the pages. Her confidence faltered after the first few lines. The color drained from her face. "These are just expenses, normal business costs." I pointed at one entry, a weekend at the Palmetto House Resort, another at a boutique in Savannah, a designer store in Atlanta, all charged to the company account. Ethan's brow creased. "Lydia, tell me that's not..." She snapped the folder shut. "Of course it's not what it looks like. Those were promotional trips, networking, marketing." I met her eyes. "Then you won't mind explaining why the receipts list personal credit cards and spa services under client relations." Her mouth tightened. "You have no right to go through those. My name is on every document in that drawer, every supplier contract, every loan, every payment authorization. So yes, Lydia, I do." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom, can we just take a breath? Maybe there's a misunderstanding." "No, Ethan, My voice stayed steady. There's no misunderstanding. I'm withdrawing my guarantee. The accounts revert to me. The bank will be notified by noon. His eyes widened. You can't just do that. We'll lose everything. I know, I said. That's what happens when people take what isn't theirs. Lydia's composure cracked. You're destroying this family. After everything we've built. What you've built, I corrected softly. And if keeping peace means erasing myself, it's not peace, it's silence. She stepped closer, fury sharpening her voice. You think you're better than us? You just want control because you can't stand that this business became ours. I picked up the folder and closed it. It was ours. Until you decided I didn't belong in the story. Ethan sank into a chair, staring at the floor. Mom, please don't do this. I already have, I said. For a long moment, no one spoke. Outside, dawn crept into the windows. Pale and quiet, Lydia's breathing came fast. Uneven. Ethan looked smaller than he ever had before. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and stood. You'll hear from the bank today, I said, and after that, you'll manage what's left on your own. Neither of them answered. When I walked out, the air was still heavy, but the silence finally belonged to me. By the end of that week, the silence turned into noise-ringing phones, unanswered messages, and voices laced with panic. The first call came from a supplier. Mrs. Lane, he said. Your son's account has been suspended. Should we hold the next shipment? Yes, I replied. Hold everything until further notice. By Friday, the rumors had already spread. Charleston doesn't need newspapers. It has lunch tables and whispers. The Cooper house wasn't the glowing success it had been a month ago. The staff noticed first missing deliveries, unpaid invoices, Lydia's short temper. Ethan showed up at my door late one night, his face drawn. Mom? We need to fix this, he said, voice cracking. Suppliers won't work with us anymore. The staff's scared. Lydia's losing her mind. I folded my arms. You should talk to the bank. It's their account now. You could undo this, he pleaded. You could tell them to reinstate your guarantee. They'll listen to you. I already listened, I said. For 3 years? He stepped closer, eyes red. You don't understand? This is everything we have? No, Ethan. It was everything I gave. For a long moment, he stared at me like he was seeing something he hadn't noticed before. You really mean to let it fall apart? It fell apart the moment I stopped existing in it, I said. The next morning, I passed by the restaurant. The sign still hung above the door, but the front lights were off. Lights. Lydia stood outside arguing with a delivery driver, her voice sharp enough to cut the air. When she saw me, her expression flickered between rage and fear. Are you happy now? She shouted. You ruined us. I didn't answer. By the following week, the doors stayed closed during lunch hours. The same people who once waited in line now crossed the street without looking up. In a city like ours, reputation fades faster than morning heat. From my porch, I could almost hear the echo of what used to be the laughter, the clinking of glasses, Lydia's voice calling orders, then just quiet. And for the first time in years, the quiet didn't wound. It simply spoke the truth. The call came on a gray afternoon, just as I was watering the plants on my porch. The number was unfamiliar, but the tone that met me was not. Mrs. Lane, it's well. We spoke a few weeks ago. From the bank. The young woman's voice trembled slightly. I wanted to let you know we've completed the investigation. Your son and his wife, their accounts are frozen. The business assets are under review. I rested the watering can on the railing. I understand. She hesitated. I thought you might want to know before the news spreads. It's going to get messy. I imagine it already has. There was a pause. Then quietly, your family's in serious trouble. I looked out toward the Ashley River. The tide was moving in slow, even lines. Steady as breath. I know, I said. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was final. After I hung up, I made tea and sat at the table by the window. The folder I'd once kept locked away now sat open, the papers inside marked and dated. Each page its own quiet truth. I didn't feel triumphant, only settled. A car passed outside, and through the curtain, I saw Ethan's shape in the passenger seat. Lydia was driving, her hands gripping the wheel. They didn't stop. I watched them until the car disappeared past the trees. The phone rang again, this time from an old friend, Tessa, who'd heard the gossip. Emily. Are you all right? I am, I said. They'll figure themselves out. One way or another, after what they did, I'd be furious. I admitted, but anger's a fire that burns where you stand. I stepped away, When we ended the call, I turned the lamp on, the same one I'd left glowing through all those late nights at the restaurant. Its light fell across the papers, soft and even. I let it stay on a while longer before closing the folder for good. Weeks later, I moved into a small cottage near the harbor, 2 rooms, white shutters. Quiet mornings. The first night, the air smelled of salt and jasmine. I unpacked slowly, one box at a time, until the space began to sound like me again. Most days, I walked to the literacy center on East Bay Street, where I helped adults learn to read the forms that used to intimidate them: leases, bank slips, job applications. Numbers make sense. One man said once, frowning at a worksheet, "Words don't." I smiled. "They will," I told him. "You just have to learn which ones tell the truth." Some evenings, Tessa stopped by after work. She'd bring groceries or flowers from the market. "It feels peaceful here," she said once, looking around the small kitchen. "It is," I said. "Peace isn't quiet, it's clean." When she left, I sat by the window overlooking the river. The water shimmered in the streetlight. Slow and certain, I reached for the lamp I'd brought from my old house, the same one that once sat beside the restaurant invoices, the same one that burned through sleepless nights. I turned it on. Its soft light touched the edges of the room, small but steady. "They built their world on image," I murmured. "I built mine on truth." Outside, a boat horn sounded in the distance. I left the lamp on as I went to bed. It wasn't waiting for anyone this time. It was simply home.